we're coming up to the top of the hour, and I'd like to introduce you to our webinar, 30 New Call Center Tips. This is the fourth series, so that will take our total by the end of it up to 120 tips that we've generated in this sequence of webinars. So a lot of information to deal with. And we've got a couple of other people just joined in the chat room. We've got Patricia, who's dialing in from Trinidad and Tobago, and Michael from New York as well. So let's have a look at the agenda today for the webinar. We've got two experts who are joining us, Ian Morton from BUD and Mike Murphy from Interactive Intelligence. Ian's going to be doing 10 tips, Mike's going to be doing 10 tips, but we're going to need 10 more tips from the audience, which we'll build in. And there's an added incentive in the audience for sending tips in. In addition to our normal bottle of champagne for the best tip, we're also going to be giving away 10 spot prizes. So if you have a tip in the chat room, if you'd like to type in #tip for a tip, and then we'll be able to deal with those going through. So Ian Morton, you're with the consultancy firm BUD, and have you spotted anything interesting going out in the market currently?
As I say, I think it's moving faster now than it has for a long time. A lot of people are getting into new projects, a lot of activities going on. I think there's still some challenge around best use of things like analytics and getting effective results out of analytics. And I think that, as I said before, it's about how do you really want to use these tools? How do you want to use that in your strategy about how you deliver service? So rather than, because analytics in its own right, for instance, is a very big and effective tool, but it can steamroller through a business. So why would you want analytics in your business? How would you use that? Where's your cost benefit going to come from it? Where's your customer benefit going to come from it? Where's that clarity of strategy? And those are the things, as I said before, I think a little bit not thought through clearly enough to maximize some of the investment that's going on. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But it'd be quite interesting to see how it pans out with some organizations that I know have taken on these tools and how they're approaching it.
Wonderful. And Mike Murphy from Interactive Intelligence, welcome back to another one of our webinars. And I think you've been on all of our 30 contact center tips webinars we've done over the past 4 years, which is great. As you travel up and down the country, you must visit a lot of contact centers. Is there anything interesting you've spotted in the last few months?
Yeah, I think the thing I've noticed really, certainly since like earlier on this year, I find there's an awful lot of new vendors, if you like, in the space that weren't there before. So we've always had, if you will, a traditional number of vendors to compete with. But recently I'm finding that more because of new vendors kind of emerging from cloud strategies and, if you like, starting new operations, new businesses, pursuing the marketplace. There seems to be quite a strong presence of new names that we're working against. So it'll be curious to see how those names go through time, and as we, it's kind of like something which I'm sort of seeing. If you like, I've been doing this quite a while, Jonty, so I've kind of seen this happen before. But at this stage, I'm kind of seeing certainly an uptick in the number of vendors in the space.
Indeed, interesting. Be interesting to see how that pans out. I suppose the advantage with the cloud, it's a bit like the internet. Anyone can start up from anywhere, and it will probably take a while for it to all settle down and things to shake out. So just a reminder.
Time will fix it.
Indeed. So just a reminder again, we've got 10 spot prizes to give away for your tips. I've seen the first tips are starting to roll into the chat room already. We'll go to those in a short while. If you're not logged into the chat room, just a reminder, it's callcenterhelper.com/chat, and we will be giving out spot prizes throughout the webinar for your tips, which will be great. And there will be a replay available later on callcenterhelper.com/recorded-webinars. So no commercial messages allowed in the chat room, And while you're logged in, just follow this link to download the webinar slides. Hashtag tip for a tip if you want to put that into the chat room. But before we get going, just want to start off with a poll. I'd just like to ask if customer service has improved in your contact center in the past year. So has customer service got much better, somewhat better, about the same, somewhat worse, or much worse? So it'd be interesting to see what's happening in our audience. Does seem to be some evidence that as the economy picks up, service levels have been getting slightly worse across the board. So it'd be interesting to see what the results coming out of this are. So we'll just close the tip off. So what we're seeing, the results are 25% much better, 43% somewhat better, 23% about the same, 6% somewhat worse, and 4% much worse. Ian, if we follow these figures, that must be good news all round.
I would say so, yes. I suppose there is also a question here about feel-good factor. But if fundamental, the brilliant basics are being delivered to the customers, and the customers are going away satisfied, then we see the much better indicator coming up all the time. I would agree, that's probably what I've seen, that things are better because people are more switched on about customer service these days than ever before. But I do think that I'm quite surprised actually as much better as high as it is. I would have been slightly lower. I thought somewhat better would be where it is, but much better is a bit higher than I thought.
Mike, do you think there's an element here that we're all scoring our own report cards here?
Yeah, it might be a case where where the economy is better. We're sort of hearing that there is a more positive attitude, if you will, in the consumer feeling about spending. So from that perspective, that may have caught out a few organisations where consumers are starting to demand more from their suppliers and the contact centres within those suppliers, and therefore perhaps if you like, those organisations just weren't quite as ready for that uptake in traffic, which might explain some of the poor performers. But congratulations to the ones that are seeing the right sort of trends much better and somewhat better. That's great to see.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'd like to drill down now and see what some of the roadblocks we've got as we move forward. So I'd like to ask the question in the chat room, and that is, in 1 or 2 words, what is the biggest challenge you face in your contact center over the next 12 months? So in 1 or 2 words, what is the biggest challenge you face in your contact center over the next 12 months? If you'd like to type that into the chat room. And we have Brian, he says it's improving morale. Hugh says it's skilled staffing. Jackie says skilled staff, as does Linda, skilled staffing. Stephanie says finding qualified candidates. Lisa says remote agents. Mike says as the economy improves, it's the retention of skilled staff. Chris says it's morale and staffing, as Mike says staffing in general. And Mike 19, different Mike, says it's cost saving. Nadine says it's improving response time. Leslie says keeping pace with technology and customer needs and expectations. Lewis says improving morale. Michael says taking our customers on a journey from telephone to digital first. Ari says it's a tech refresh. Matthew says integrating channels, social into CRM. Jenny says integrating and promoting digital channels. Kelly says it's internal attrition and managing staff. Kate says morale and keeping the best staff in high roles. So it looks like the common threads there are morale, staffing, and dealing with technology in a multi-channel environment. So Ian, does that sort of tie in with what you've been seeing out there?
Oh, most certainly. I think the traditional, if you like, the people processes, keeping people happy, getting things done are still the biggest issues that we have on a day-to-day and the biggest challenge we face. However, as we move towards more of the digital world and we have multi-channel and managing the multi-channel environment, there's a whole raft of new challenges coming through there, I would say, particularly around skill sets, particularly recognising competence, how you want to actually interface with your customers according to channel, and whether you want to drive customers from one channel to another. And we've seen some fantastic successes in the past on that. We also see some horrible failures on it as well. So I think that my words of sort of reference would be, just look back about how other people have handled things in the past. You can learn a lot from history. So everything we're talking about now, actually, there's been some precedents in the past you could learn from in going forward.
Yeah, I think precedent is quite a good one. This isn't the first time we've come out of a recession. And Mike, there seems to be a lot of concern there about sort of technology constraints and multi-channel. What's fascinating is I think we've only seen budget constraints come up once on there. So it seems there's an appetite to do it. But I think a lot of people are sort of mired down in the technology they've got.
Yeah, it's actually, it kind of touches on one of my tips. So I'm just trying to keep my powder dry there. But certainly I think there is a lot of, depending upon which way you've tried to solve your multi-channel sort of issues with technology, there's quite a few traps there that customers will typically fall into. And it makes it very, very difficult. And in a way, I kind of want to just talk a bit more about that on one of my tips. But certainly, if you go down the wrong road, unfortunately, it's really bad just to kind of turn around, come back out, and start again. But you know, we can talk about more of that when we get to the tip section.
Okay, well, we'll keep the powder dry for that. I think that's probably a good chance to hand across to Ian, who can take through the first 5 of the 30 tips. Ian, across to you, if we can get these slides up on the screen.
Take this up.
There we go.
There we go. Right, lovely. Okay, bear in mind, all of my tips here are pretty straightforward stuff. You can't boil the ocean dry in one go, so take bite-sized chunks out of things. And the other thing is, they're all related to customer engagement, because everything we do is related to effective customer engagement. So, you know, this research we heard about earlier on, it's really interesting because it really does relate. So, first slide. If you don't do this, you don't get good customer engagement. So every time someone tries to come through to you, and irrespective of channel, you know, the frustrations that customers have, it started off with telephony, and it carries on through on all the other channels as well. It's not being heard, not being listened to. So just make sure that you respond quickly, even if it's just a holding pattern, to those customers out there who are trying to get through. And then around that as well is the education of the best channel to use. But that kind of goes on into the bigger picture. So make sure you respond quickly to all contacts. Number 2, keep on tracking contact reasons in the front line. Don't let the technology gurus take away some of the focus there. Don't track everything. Track a sample. Keep a clear picture. It helps focus on what to work on. It makes sure that you understand really what customers are saying. Sometimes, one of the biggest issues I've seen about things like analytics is you'll get the analytics gurus taking off and flying off in another direction, when in fact your guys are saying to you, well, we hear the customer say this. So keep on tracking it. Align it through to what's going on in the analytics side. Talk with the rest of the business about it, but provide that information through to the business as well, so that they can get consistent sampling that can be aligned to the more complex analytics. Don't try and track everything. Look at the key primaries and a few secondaries. You can always track the other stuff later. Go for the top stuff, but keep on doing it. Number 3, language, and I say this probably every time, is customers have a particular way of describing things. If you use those terms, if you use the language that the customers use, it's easier and more relevant than the process terms. Don't use jargon when you're talking to customers is number 1 rule, but also don't use jargon when you're talking to your colleagues in the business, because someone in sales probably won't understand your customer service jargon, as I don't understand and other people don't understand IT jargon. So if you come back to the simple language, easier and more relevant process terms, easier and more relevant than technical terms. And it also makes something like identifying true ownership clearer. If someone doesn't understand something or wants something done, the way the customer says it, you can identify who is the real owner in the business, which element of the process. So you can get that information back again to the business, and you get a better response from the business. Start talking in simple English, in the customer language.
And presumably you can track that through things like call recordings to see how much jargon is being used during the quality monitoring program.
But one of the things, for instance, when you're tracking why customers are calling you, track that reason for contact in the customer language, so that you've got that data there as well. And targeting your analytics guys to use the customer language as well when they're reporting on things. So you get that right across the whole thing. My top tip number 4, again, because it's really difficult to change the business, customer service doesn't tend to generate the reasons why customers call in or want to contact you. Customer service is helping those customers to come to a good resolution, to get what they want. So you need to get the information as to why those customers are coming through out into the rest of the business. So you can get the business to change, to improve, to do things better. So you either get rid of those unnecessary contacts, or you improve the processes that you deliver for the customer that contact because you understand it better. Now, the only way you're going to do that, because you can't be everywhere, is get some champions around the business. Don't need to be department heads, but they can be people who the department head will listen to. Get them to be your champion in their department, so when you've got a problem in front line, you can go to them and talk to them about it, and they can drive change through in that area. For me, marketing and sales are the best places to start. If you can say to a salesman, I actually know how you can sell more, you've got a friend for life. And if you can say to marketing, well, actually, your campaign actually cheesed off the customers a little bit there, they're not going to like that. But if you've then got the data to prove it, you can really start changing behaviours in that marketing area and get them as friends rather than competitors. Tip number 5, good on this. When using self-service, make sure it's easy to use and applicable. Yeah, self-service has got to be the preferred options for customers. I've literally just used self-service to set up a new bank account, and I think it's one of the most appalling processes that I went through. And I actually packed up with one bank, went on to another one, tried another one, packed up with them, and went on to another one, and then went back to the original one because they were all so bad. And it's all down to compliance and rules and regulations, but they need to think that through because I'm a customer, I don't understand it. So make it easy for the customer and then keep the customer engaged. But keep me engaged in a simple way that really helps me rather than makes me do more stuff. Okay, that's my 5 tips done.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Ian. We're going to just follow up on one of Ian's points with a quick poll. And Ian's tip was make it easy and simple for your contact center to deal with. So just how easy and how simple is your contact center to deal with? Is it very easy? Is it reasonably easy? Is it good in patches and patchy in others? Is it reasonably difficult, or is it very difficult to deal with? So if you'd like to vote on that, if you'd just like to pop that voting into the voting box would be good. So I'm just going to share the results here, Ian, and the results are 10% very easy, 39% reasonably easy, 43% good in patches, patchy in others, 6% reasonably difficult, and only 1% very difficult. So looks like there's a slightly different skew on this from the customer service levels we're offering, that maybe the customer service we're doing, according to the previous poll, was good. A bit more difficult to deal with. Ian, what's your take?
Okay, I was almost going to say there, I don't think we've got many people from government services here then. A couple roll off the top of my head, which I'm not going to say, but they're really difficult to deal with. And they're trying to do all the right stuff. They're trying to automate, they're trying to go digital, but it's the processes and the way they're doing it. I think, generally speaking, life is getting better for a lot of customers, but it's still around certain areas where we seem to fall over, where things like compliance comes in, where regulations have to be abided by, where as an organisation we're forced to do certain things we don't really want to do but have to do it because of government legislation. So I think you need to be thinking how, if you're one of those organisations, you need to think there's still customers out there. They don't really want to talk to you unless they've got to. So what's driven them to come through to you? Either what that might be on a email, or it might be on web chat, whatever channel they choose. I think that the good thing now is we do have choice of channel.
Wonderful. So we're going to jump across now to Mike Murphy. Mike, are you going to share with us your first 5 tips?
I am indeed, John. Yeah, let me just pull my screen up here. Here we go. So, can you see that?
There we go. We can indeed.
Great. Okay. So, firstly, everybody, I'd like to introduce you to the new interactive intelligence branding. Just a little plug there, so forgive me, but we're undergoing quite a significant change in interactive, and part of that obviously is our branding. So you'll see more of this going forward, hopefully quite vigorously in the second half to the end of this year, and I'll be looking forward to some of your feedback to those new things that start to emerge from our brand. But jumping into tip number 6, and like I mentioned really in the question earlier, if I keep my powder dry, something, multi-channel I think is something which I've had a great opportunity to speak with about 20 different organizations, contact center organizations, a few weeks back. And what was very common across all of those conversations was the fact that they were all wrestling with multi-channel. And having understood how they're actually doing multi-channel today and the various tools that they're using to try and help them, what I've realized really is that the multi-channel sort of attempt, if you will, has not really been taken seriously. They're using technology from multiple vendors, and what I mean there is one platform doing chat and another platform doing email, and a completely separate platform doing voice. So in a way, this is what I kind of say, if you are going down that approach, what you're going to find is it's going to be very hard for you to make your strategy effective. And the reason is very simple, and I've listed them here really, is because it's very difficult to load share when you have dedicated tools for dedicated people. So really you've got to get to like a single platform that can do multi-channel instead of something for chat and something for email, etc. Certainly what I've found is in talking to these guys who are users, they're telling me they've got no real-time views of what's happening in their queues of chats or emails. They've got very little reporting, just hardly anything you can compare with in a true contact center reporting type tool. No recording, no notion of quality management or workforce management. So my average handle time for a chat, my average handle time for emails, and the associated workforce planning around that, it just wasn't there, John T. I mean, it's not that they're trying and failing, but it just wasn't there. And I found that quite alarming because of we now know that there is getting to a point where there's going to be just as much multi-channel traffic as there is voice traffic. So we've got to start making these things work in the same sort of way. And then finally, there was no notion, if you like, of blending multi-channel work with voice. So all in all, my observation of these guys is just that there's a lot of money being wasted, a lot of frustration internally. And what I would encourage people to do is do multi-channel properly and get the right technology to do that, because clearly, single silo solutions just do not work. And then my next one really is something which I've again come across through live conversations with customers, and it's the idea of smarter outbound. And from my experience, which is quite a lot, outbound has always been associated with the dollar, and the golden chase there was how do we going to get the average talk time per agent per hour up. That's the kind of goal of effective dialing technology. But really what we're seeing now is that the outbound efforts coming from some organizations have switched to becoming very relationship orientated. And it's kind of I think in parallel with the downturn, I think that's really where it kind of stemmed from. And trying to get empathetic with your customer to sort of understand their situation, understand their circumstances, and try to be empathetic in how you can help together to sort of overcome their issues in whatever sort of facet they may be. And what we're also finding now is the fact that we all have smartphones, being able to leverage those, and in a way, again, another sort of adage of outbound was the best time to contact. When really I'm sort of seeing now is actually what is the best way to contact the consumer as being the more sort of valuable piece of information. And whether that's a call or an email, a chat, or an SMS, the customers are now expecting a single conversation, albeit across those different media channels. So certainly from the point of view of getting outbound, if you like, addressed, we would say professionalize those proactive customer experiences. And then my tip number 8 is kind of it does feature in the previous stack of tips, Jonty, so I apologize. It's not a new one per se, but I think the way that I'm coming at it is slightly different. And what I've observed really is that in order for you to get success with the kind of strategies that I've listed here, so a multi-channel strategy, a customer service excellence strategy, even the omni-channel strategy, that single conversation across different media types, to get those done properly, you kind of really need a single view of the customer. Otherwise, you're going to struggle, and already you're on the back foot, to be honest. You're not going to be able to upsell, cross-sell effectively. You're not going to be able to deploy strategies like people who bought X also bought Y. And certainly you're not going to be able to get that proactive sort of smarter outbound strategies that I described earlier. So from that perspective, I suppose, again, as technology has become more, if you like, consumable, what I'm finding is, it's cloud-based. I think people should be looking to make the step and actually get away from siloed platforms and get into a single customer view as quickly as possible. And like an all-in-one platform, like an interactive story, combined with any of the leading CRM vendors, we're seeing that the brands who adopt that type of combination see growth in their revenue, see growth in their customer satisfaction, and see growth in their profit. It's there. The business cases are there, and it's a fact. So those who aren't getting on that wagon really need to sort of think hard about their current sort of circumstances. And my tip number 9 really is about sort of broadcasting the good news, really. So as an agent, this idea of a web dashboard that sort of would provide for an agent a single place to see their schedule, their scores, their CSAT scores, their personal stats, and how they're performing compared to colleagues in the team, even their recordings or the trends that we're seeing around Mike, the individual. These are now able to be provided via web dashboards, so they're accessible, on my smartphone, on my tablet. So from that perspective, that sort of visibility is now there for that kind of detail. What's also kind of nice, really, is that from an executive point of view, we can also provide this information again in a more sort of concise and condensed way. So perhaps having a score that I can see my first contact resolution scores. Am I achieving that? And why am I not? My net promoter scores. What am I achieving? What is my score today? And clearly as well, like what is my service level across my various channels? So from that perspective, what I would encourage there is, why can't we see some of these scores being shown live on websites? There's no reason whatsoever. It's perfectly technically possible. It's just people haven't got the attitude to do that. But I would encourage you to change it, because that would give you a competitive edge. And similarly, when visitors arrive in your reception, why can't we see how the performance of the contact center is going right now, live in the contact center, similarly in boardrooms? So with these kind of web dashboards, it's a great way to kind of brag about the success you're having in your contact center and share it with the wider organization, prospects, customers, and your website. And then finally, for this section, really is the idea of a wireless supervisor. So this is really sort of caught on in our sort of like solution stack, Jonty, to a point where it literally is an anytime, any place, anywhere supervisor. And the notion of not being tied to a desk, and typically that's the desk at the end of a group of desks in the contact center, and that person is kind of watching their sort of colleagues around the team of colleagues, if you like, around a single desk. But in a way, as we've now become more mobile, we're able to sort of listen and monitor calls, chats, emails whilst we're on the move. We can see where people are sitting, so who's in today and where they're sitting. We can manage alerts. We can grab screenshots of performance and email them to colleagues, to managers, or to HR perhaps if things aren't going so well. But there's a nice little demo there that's on the App Store. It's free to use. Just download it and have a go. It'll give you a good impression of what the tool looks like. But certainly by the adoption, if you will, of our customers of this type of tool, they've really loved it. And again, as I suppose, like building on my previous tip, it's a nice word to share and brag about your success.
Wonderful,
so with that,
thank you.
I'll hand back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I do like the idea on the agent dashboard of being able to show up not just statistics there, relating to, say, quality scores, things that people might be potentially be beaten up on, but just things like wrap-up codes. So advisors can see on the day what the a sort of statistical split on what's going on, so they can perhaps get trends coming out and alert people of what's going on. So I think there's some great pieces there of showing different types of granular information, get people involved in solving the problem rather than just fielding calls for it. So we're going to jump across now and have a look at what's coming through.
Jonty, can I just say something on that? I mean, that's excellent. If you can get that sort of web stuff around the business. It goes back to my point about getting a champion in the business in each department. You know, you get that information out that people can see and what's going on. They'll then start to participate in customer service far more, be more aware of what's going on. Careful language again, but it's a really good tool to use that.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to jump across. We've had over 32 tips entered so far into the chat room. So, Megan, you're going to take us, it's going to be like drinking from a fire hydrant. I think there's a lot of tips coming through. It could get a bit messy. So, do you want to take us through the first one, and we'll award some spot prizes as we go?
Yep, the first tip's coming from Peter. It says, get the CEO to go back to the floor.
I love that. I'm going to award that a spot prize here and then, so that will be an audience tip.
Okay. Then we've got Kate who says, each month we track the customers that contacted us the most across all contact channels. We review all the contacts to understand if we could have offered better help on the call or if the website needs updating to better support the customer. This helps us make sure we offer great service to our customers and learn from them on how best to support them. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a nice way to sort of capture the actual activity and get a good measure of the number of transactions from the same customer. So that's pretty nice.
Okay, and we've had another one in from Michael that says agents should have at least 1 hour per month to pursue up training, special project work, or monitoring a high-rated agent. It's something to improve their performance or understanding of the business. And then Christopher said, speak to customers as people, not as automated processes or scripted robots. People respond to people.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, definitely. Talk to customers as proper people. Yeah.
So is that a spot prize, Mike? Ian?
Yeah, I'd like that one to be, yes, please.
Okay, we'll put that in as number 12.
Nice and simple.
Okay. Victoria said, ask your team to be responsible for great service by gathering snippets of customer feedback to work on. They're the people closest to the customers, and I use this as a KPI.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter said, sit your website optimizers in the contact center and get them to respond in real time to what agents observe customers are struggling with.
That is a really powerful tip. That's a very good one. Some organisations now, there are actually more people working updating the websites than there are on the front line. They're taking the information coming from the front line on a real-time basis and changing the website as it's going, so that you've got your the value of feedback there, then and there, going back out to the customers, new customers. Really good one. I'd love
Brilliant.
To,
I think that has just been given a spot prize there, tip number 13. And we've had another tip in from Hugh saying, know your customers, make it as personal as it can get, know who is calling, maybe even what time they're calling, and know personal details about your customers as well, for example, Facebook and LinkedIn.
Mike, you presumably need some technology to join all those records together.
Absolutely right. No, I was going to say, you put me to the post, Jonty. I like that one, so give that a prize.
Oh, wow, the prizes are coming thick and fast.
Okay. We've had a tip in now from Mike that says, get buy-in from your quality assurance program and have your QA program focus more on the positive rather than the negative. Once the agents understand that you are there to help rather than beat them down, the coaching actually starts to work. And Dan has said, recruit from all walks of life and all ages.
I think diversity of agents is a very, very good example.
Yeah, I like that. I have to say, I do like that.
Okay, so sorry, am I skipping on, or are we awarding that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We've had another tip in from Kate that says, I've started to run team feedback sessions each week so that the team can feedback trends they're finding and any process changes they feel would help. Michael said, while walking around the floor, give out spot awards when you hear a good interaction with the caller. They don't have to cost a lot of money. And Michael again said, don't have team leaders take escalated calls or emails. It reduces the time they can coach and manage their team. Instead, establish a separate escalation group.
Correct, yeah, they become a bottleneck really, and they also, they should be passing that skill down to their team really. That's their job as a team leader, so supervisor. So in that sense, fully agree. I like that one.
Okay.
Like it enough for a spot prize?
Oh, definitely, Jonty. I beg your pardon. Yes, definitely.
Okay. So we're up to 15 now. We'll read a couple more, then we'll jump into the next part of the agenda.
Okay, we've had a tip in from Christopher. It says, customer service is the first point of contact. This sentence on its own says 1,000 words. If any business wishes to ensure that customers gain a good first impression, then this area within any business needs as much focus as any other. We've had another tip in from Robert that says, let agents set their own goals. This motivates them to work harder in achieving those goals. And another one from Leslie that says, focus on your people. Happy staff equal happy customers. And a final one now from Dan that says, if it's not regulatory compliance, throw the scripts away and let your agents listen to the customer's needs and find the answers. I think that's all we've got time for, John T, if you wanted to pass back.
Yeah, that last one. Yeah, sorry, that last one is very relevant. I think, the script is great for when you're learning and new into the role. But quite honestly, agents understand and can then react far better to the customer's needs if you give them flexibility. Obviously, compliance does cause some issues and challenges there, but agents should have flexibility to respond to the customer. So I like that.
Correct.
So we'll make that as a bonus tip then. So
hey,
even more. Right, wonderful. Well, we're going to jump across now to Ian Morton, and Ian, if you'd like to take us through your next batch of tips, number 16 to 20.
Okay. Still on this whole thing about customer engagement, making it nice and easy for the customer get through. IVR's had a lot of different press over the years. If done well, it really does help the customer get through to the right person. But so many people say to me, this is a great organisation, they put you straight through to somebody, you don't go through an IVR. So I think in most cases, customers don't like IVR. And actually the businesses don't like it, and the agents don't like it. So if you are using it, keep it simple, constantly review it, and base that review on customer and agent feedback from the sharp end. If your guys are telling you it's not working, it obviously is impacting the customer. So make sure that there's a process in place to constantly review and update your IVR. This is a bit like IVR, speech recognition, and it should be the future. It's a little bit like old, I think, was it Rin Tin Tin? He knew what was going on, a couple of woofs, hey, you're off. Keep it simple, and again, feedback. However, I put it in here because when I've used it, I have not had very good experiences of it. And there's a little survey later on about this, but one of the things I'm always frightened about is that do people tape me when I'm actually trying to use one of the speech recognition systems? Because I'm going to be prosecuted one day because my language generally gets worse and worse and worse as I go through the process. And once it says after the 5th time, did you mean something? I'm just about, if I had hair, I'd be pulling it out. So again, speech recognition is a fantastic tool, but make sure you've got it really working right. And make sure new technology does what's expected. It's literally, it's there to help us. But make sure that when you're doing anything new, you've got new stuff coming through, that your processes are reviewed for alignment, that the technology supports the processes to get the right end product for the customer, and that there's regular training and feedback, and you can understand you've got clear expectations of the impact on the customer and the value to the business. I've worked on a whole raft of projects over my years where technology has been put in because the board think we need a new CRM platform or whatever, and actually we end up by spending the next 6 months realigning all of our processes and practices to make it fit the CRM, not thinking about the customer because we're so internally looking. It's a bit like AHT. If you measure people by AHT, your agents will think of AHT rather than the customer. Right. If you don't make sure your technology is not right and it's not been aligned to your processes, your agents will be thinking about the technology, not about the customer. So technology is a fantastic thing when it's done right. And this is a little bit going back to what Mike was saying earlier on. It's about the channels and how you use channels. So it's alignment of channels. And I think here it's making sure that if you can't align your channels effectively, then think about should you really have a multiple number of channels. doing 1 or 2, 3 channels really well is better than having, trying to do Facebook, whatever. There's nothing more frustrating than a customer going and finding different information on the web than when he talks to, or she talks to the contact center. So, and that's also frustrating for your agents. How do you do that? That's a big question, not to be answered here, but think it through and make sure. There's a good idea about getting the web designer actually inside the operating site. That's one of the ways you could do it. Make sure it happens though, because otherwise you'll get a real confusion from your customers and real frustration, and again, engagement will just go out the window. And finally, my passion here is all about your agents. It's not just about performance, it's about the passion and involvement that makes the difference. If your agents are passionate about what they're doing, if they love the customers and they love what the way they've got to work and how they work and the guys around them, they'll deliver good performance because they'll understand. Give them good targets, give them clarity, make sure they understand why they're there and what the output is expected, but let them get on with it. Give them enough rope to do their job. Again, I put a whole raft of different performance measurement systems in place in my time, and a lot of them have had reverse results because we're actually trying to track everything rather than focus on what we're really trying to deliver. That's my last of my tips for this time.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Ian. We're going to just have a little drill down into one of the comments Ian made about speech recognition. I'd just like to get your view of what you think of speech recognition technology in the contact center. Have you used it and you think it's great? Have you used it and found it's either difficult or unreliable? Are you planning to use it? Do you think you might use it at some point in the future, or do you think it's not appropriate for you and you'd never use it in the contact center? So let's have a look at some of the voting. If you can just put that into the chat box, and the results coming up. It looks like not a lot of people are using it, Ian. 4% use it and think it's great. 7% use it and find it's either difficult or unreliable. 11% are planning to use it. 50% say it may have some potential in the future, and 28% would never use it. Is there any great surprises, Ian?
No, because I think it's the future is out there statement, isn't it? It is a future tool, and it's a learning one. People have picked up it at the moment, funnily enough, for large government departments, and because they're obviously trying to handle huge volumes of contacts. So something like a speech recognition is an obvious no-brainer for them. But again, if you're trying to call them, it's not a good experience at the moment. So there's a lot of learning, I think, to be taking place. I would say that if you're a telephony-based organisation, or you have telephony in your organisation, speech recognition could probably work for you wherever you are, as long as you structure it right. Mm-hmm. So downstream, this is definitely something to be thinking about. It could save you a lot of time, it could save you a lot of cost, and it could interact with all the other channels that might be going on far more effectively.
Mike, do you think speech recognition is likely to be the future, or do you think it's going to be more handled on digital channels instead now?
Yeah, I suppose I kind of watched speech recognition kind of evolve, if you will, on the back of what was a traditional IVR, sort of call handling and trying to self-service calls, if you will, and that seemed to kind of work to a reasonable extent. But I do feel that sometimes I think some organisations have been just too ambitious with the capability, really, and then you get the sort of problems that Ian describes, which become very frustrating and lead to lots of bad PR, and obviously these days that leads to a lot of bad social media comments, which then gets pretty quickly to the desktop of the CEO. So from that perspective, I suppose if it was me, John T, I would actually spend my money on enhancing my website and making it easier to get on my website, find the answers there. And if I am going to do some speech recognition, it literally will be things for, I want to talk about service or sales, or I want to talk about, just keywords, small pockets. Did you mean this? Yes. Did you mean that? No. Just, I wouldn't try to be too ambitious with the functionality at all. I think that would be more effective. And like I say, get better information on your website would probably do a lot of call avoidance in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's kind of.
I totally agree with Mike there. Alignment of your existing channels and making sure your web is really 100% up to speed, and giving good information, easy to find, will save you a lot of effort. Speech recognition is one of those value things that come downstream, and I'm sure there will be a time. We will still be talking to people via telephony for a long time to come. And yes, new social media channels will take over as time goes up by, but the voice will still be here for the next few years.
No question.
So speech recognition is a tool. Make sure you use it right. And as Mike's saying, bite-sized chunks again.
Yeah.
Do it simply.
Yeah.
Right, Mike. So what's your last 5 tips?
Okay, so just I beg your pardon, everybody. I'm so sorry. There's timing for you. That's where I thought it was, and actually this is where I need to be. Okay, so I beg your pardon, everyone. So my next tip really is about the where are you getting your technology advice from? I suppose that's what I'm asking, and is that a good source really of advice? And really over time, I think we had this notion of like 3 strikes and you're out. So if your vendor has kind of promised something and they haven't delivered, you kind of give them a chance and kind of make sure it doesn't happen again. But sometimes it happens again. But ultimately, 3 strikes and you're out. And really, my point here is that these days, I think that notion is gone for good. And if somebody is making me a technology promise, then I'm expecting that promise to be delivered. And if it isn't, then in my eyes, 1 strike and you're out. So I really want to see this thinking of like never compromise on vendor promises, demand that the functionality that was promised is delivered, and really like firmly demand. And don't forget that you can take people to court for misrepresentation, that type of thing. What I'd ask you to think about really before you sort of lock yourself into a vendor would be to say, well, what is their motivation here? What is their core business? Where do they get their core revenue from? And that might be network minutes, it might be outsourcing, it might be systems integration, for example. But clearly understand what it is that they get most of their profit from as you make your assessments of different vendors. So you can just understand where your priorities fit in their priorities, because often you find that after you sign the contract, you'll find that those priorities are actually in very, very different places. So again, the sensible thing is to take due diligence steps, get your 3 quotes, get your references, take up the references, and preferably go and visit those references. So from that perspective, don't take things on face value, especially if you're getting into like complex technology solutions. And there's also as well, which is a very different shift, if you will, to what has always been a very sort of, if you like, what's the word? People have been using their technology platforms and contact centers for like, dozens of years, like 10 years, 12 years, even longer. And from that perspective, I think we've really got to change that approach, because no longer do you have to subscribe to these long-term commitments. And I'll actually encourage you not to, because the rate of change, if you will, in technology means that you're going to be locked into all types of functionality, which are going to be hard to get away from. So avoid those long-term commitments. You don't have to enter into a long-term commitment. And even though they'll probably promise some fantastic discounts for doing so, actually I'd say you'd be better and more cost-effective by avoiding them, to be fair, especially with the rate of change that's soon to emerge. So challenge your suppliers repeatedly will be my tip 21. Tip 22 really, and there should be no surprise here because cloud is all around us really and is very much part of how we deliver today. But think about it in this way, in one simple move, you can completely modernize your technology. Just imagine that. You can consolidate multiple vendors who are maybe today supplying your solution to you, and one owns email and one owns chat and one owns the contact center, one does workforce management, one does recording. All these vendors you can kind of eliminate and just get to one vendor who can provide everything for you in a nice, easy and efficient way from the cloud. It will certainly make life easier for your staff, both supervisors and agents, and the good thing is it'll also reduce your costs significantly. So from that perspective, really think about if you want to kind of transform your customer engagement experiences, if you are struggling with those and you never seem to be able to solve it, then this might be the right way to bite the bullet and in one simple move, break free from the hassles of old tech and get yourself to a situation where you can delight your customers and grow your business. My next one really is around home working. And my comment here really is it's now an everyday choice. So if you're not doing it, please embrace it because the model is proven. The best practices of how to do it are clearly understood and are published out there so you can grab them at will and kind of use them yourself. The tools are there to help workers feel included and motivated. So even though I am a home worker, I don't have to feel that I'm kind of not part of the organization, because with team presence and chat and video and those type of tools, I can feel just as part of the organization as a home worker as I can at my desk in a large contact center, in the middle of a city, for example. So from that perspective, think about that, and also as well from a sort of an operational perspective, the tools are there for compliance and adherence. So the situation for home workers is very much de-risked, and also you could be using it for home-based supervisors. There's no functional reason why that cannot happen, and we have many customers who have got no agents or supervisors in their buildings, in their sort of head office buildings. They are all home workers, and that's by policy. So from that perspective, this is a very proven model. So the things that you would expect, like recording, quality analytics, all those tools can still apply. Real-time screens, alerts, etc., all still apply. It's just it gives a great flexibility for your employees, and also great flexibility for you, the contact center operator. So I would encourage you to think about home worker again. And this one really is a little bit of kind of, again, it's through conversations that I'm having with customers. And I'm seeing it sort of an effect I'm going to call the Big Four effect, where we kind of came across this in banking some years ago, kind of before the crisis. And in a way, as consumers to banking, we all kind of felt that, yeah, there's quite a few of them who are kind of the Big Four, shall we say. They're kind of samey. They don't really try too hard to differentiate, to be honest, because I never felt that after so many years of being a customer, nothing really changed that much. The charges were quite confusing and hard to understand, and often they were sort of selling me things that I didn't need, like the PPI scandal, for example, which they're kind of still paying off today. So what's kind of worrying me is kind of like a player in this space is that I'm kind of seeing similar patterns in the outsourcing market. Okay, and it doesn't delight me to say that because several of my customers are outsourcers. But what I would say is that we've got to be thinking pretty hard as people who subscribe to these kind of capabilities. Just be wary of this effect, because often when we see some new innovative outsourcers pop up and kind of bring some good change, if you like, to the industry, they get suddenly snapped up and acquired by these Big Four. So again, we saw this back in the banking days. And to be fair, the stuff they're using isn't necessarily the top of the range, and in a way, by sort of encouraging inefficiency, it helps them to argue for more billable seats per month and therefore more profit. So in a way, they actually don't want to go into tools and capabilities that will help them to be more efficient, because that means they can't build so much. So it's just my comment here, really, and that is to say, is this really the right model for your brand? Because in some cases, absolutely no question. But in many other situations, I don't think so. That's my comment. And then the last one I have really, Jonty, is kind of different. And I'm going to call it what I've called it, my favorite restaurant. And you might say, well, what's the parallel here, Mike? But it's really, really simple. But in my favorite restaurant, I am actually made to feel really welcome every time I pop in there. And they don't keep me waiting, and they kind of recognize me as I come in, and I feel they treat me differently. They may not treat me differently, but I feel they treat me differently. I find the staff attentive, fun, pretty efficient. It kind of ticks all the boxes for me, and the food is always good, and the dishes are always kind of, they keep changing. So, from that perspective, if I was a sort of social guy, I'll be sort of, raving about it to my friends on social media, and I'm always delighted to go back there. So I kind of feel that as a technology vendor to contact centers, I always sometimes get frustrated when I see functionality badly deployed, and I kind of say to myself, why can't these organizations just get it right? Whether it's the vendor that's applying the organization or the organization itself, what's so difficult here? It's just, to me, if your contact center was a restaurant, how are your customers feeling about being in your contact center today or being your guest today? And I kind of just want to leave you with that question, because I think it's quite a valid way to sort of have to test yourself. Are you doing things correctly, or are you getting distracted by the wrong things?
So that's wonderful, Mike. Well, I'm going to actually ask that question now of the audience, and that question is, if your call center was a restaurant, what would it be called, and how would your customers be feeling? Would it win MasterChef, as Kelly has said in the chat room? Would it be a McDonald's and be efficient and perhaps somewhat disappointing, or would it be a top-end restaurant? So if you'd just like to type into the chat room, if your contact center was a restaurant, what would it be called, and how would your customers be feeling? So we'll just have a look at what people are calling into the restaurant. Branley said a call center would be Nando's. I don't know how your customers would be feeling about that. Loud and busy. Kelly said said it would be called, the restaurant would be called Happy Valley, which I think is is a nice one.
Sounds good.
Have we got any other people about their restaurant? Layla said their customers would be leaving satisfied. Robert says the contact center would be called Paradise. What other suggestions have we got coming through? Dan says it'd be the Waffle Factory. That's a good one.
Nice one.
Julie said it's fed up with waiting. It'd be Shea Blues. Lewis said it'd be the school canteen. In and out, nothing more. Lee says the contact center is a bit like end of the road. Steve says it's IVR Palace. So
love it. Absolutely love it.
Quite a range of different tips. So I think some interesting thought. I think there's a very strong parallel between restaurants and contact centers. Don't think I've ever thought of it in that way, but I think that analogy is probably very appropriate. Well, we're going to jump across to have a look at the last of the 5 tips, which we'll take in from the audience. I think we've had over the 65 tips so far in the chat room. So, Megan, we've got a lot of tips come through. Any we don't read out, we'll be writing up before too long. So, Megan, what are the latest tips? Mike and Ian, if you like a tip, just say you like it. If you want to award a spot prize, just say spot prize.
Okay, yep, the chat room has been really busy. So we've had a tip in from Michael that says, use your customer data to enhance service. Having historic caller information appear on an agent's desktop can really help them to personalise each call and improve customer satisfaction. We've had another one in from Michael saying, collect recordings and emails of great and not so great customer sessions and use them in new hire training. That's
a nice one.
I like that one, because one of the things is questions when you're new to a job. You say what is good, the whole raft of pressures on you to learn the systems and the processes. But what is good when I talk to a customer? What does it mean? So I like that. It's nice and simple. Here's a good one. Here's a bad one. You know what not to do. You know what to do. Great.
Enough for a spot prize?
Yeah, definitely.
We'll make that as 26 then. Okay.
I've had one in from Michael saying, promote from within. If agents have no room to grow and aspire to, their desire to excel and work hard deteriorates. Peter said, when improving your IVR, run many test and learn experiments with vocab, order, sequence, etc. Small differences make major changes in completion rates.
Yeah, good.
Well,
definitely good.
27, yeah. Melinda says, invest in your team leaders training, coaching strategies and how they manage. Also make sure there's consistency across teams. Agents talk, and if team leaders are not on the same page, your agents will pick up on those differences.
Nice one, yeah.
Yeah, Michael says, seat so-so agents next to very good agents so they can learn by observing/listening. Mike, I suppose this can go both ways. You don't want your good agents picking up bad habits.
Oh, but I think knowing that the so-so agent is a so-so agent, then it's like it's quite effective. It's quite canny. I like it.
Yeah. It's quite a common practice actually. A lot of companies I've been to use it. It's called a buddy system.
Yeah.
So when you come out of training, you sit next to you've got your buddy. So someone's there to answer your queries after training.
Joel, I'm going to give it a spot prize. Go on, Megan.
You want to give that one a spot prize?
Yeah,
I do.
Okay. We'll do that. 28.
Yeah. Okay. Robert says offer flexible scheduling to help control your staff turnover rates. Steve says have a social committee which are responsible for all fun things. For example, pulling a country out of the hat for the Eurovision Song Contest and the winner gets a small prize. This can be done for many events.
I think that's great. And if the company can top in a bit of money as well, it would be fabulous.
Yeah.
You can do an awful lot, because most people in frontline actually like to have a good time. So you can do an awful lot with very little money.
Yep.
Brilliant. Okay, we've got another tip in from Mike that says continually review your quality criteria and phone standards and ensure that they are relevant to your current business and customer needs and wants. And then Christopher says an in-house talent management program allows advisors a chance to progress, work towards a goal, and also work hand in hand with morale and confidence, which in turn rubs off on performance and attitude.
I love that one. I think that's that fits in very nicely.
Is that one going for a spot prize?
We will give that the spot prize number 30.
Okay.
So, are you going to take a couple more and then we'll see what's come through?
Yeah. Marius says, really pay attention to your agents, listen to what they say and let them know what you are going to do as a direct result of their input, then do it. Agents will be much more engaged and happy if they know they are listened to and valued enough for changes to be made based on their advice. Kelly?
It's going to be the last one coming up now.
Yeah, okay. Kelly says, as a team leader, have fun and let your team have fun too. Engage with them. And I think that's all we've got time for now. Back to you, John T.
Okay, wonderful. All the ones that we haven't been able to call out, we'll type up and we'll add on to the website in the next couple of weeks. So top of the hour again, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for during this webinar week. In one or two words, what did you like best about the webinar today? Slides are available on Call Center Helper, and you can catch a recording of the webinar, callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinar. So there's a lot of detail that we went through. We're back with Mike Murphy live from Indianapolis on Thursday the 11th of June, and just like to say thank you to my two speakers, Ian Morton from Bud. Thank you to you, Ian.
Thanks, John T.
And Mike Murphy, thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, John T. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, and thanks to all in the audience for attending, and look forward to seeing you on the next webinar next Thursday. Bye-bye for all. Bye-bye.